Hello and welcome to the Full 10 Yards Betting Podcast. We're here with a special mid-season, mid-season review, a mid-season look at the odds for around the divisions, some of the awards markets, and anything else that we fancy for the middle of the year. I am joined today by Liam Horsley on Twitter and Callum at Callum JD Squires on Twitter. We are not doing that great for the weekend, so we'll just skip over that. We'll leave that for the Thursday, which we will hopefully get some listeners for. Liam, how are you after the weekend?
Yeah, good, thanks. Had some good winners this weekend. Not as good as your weekend, unfortunately, but had some nice ones and won my best bet, so I'm feeling good about that. But unfortunately, looking at futures means I've had to see how many Rams NFC West bets I had in ACCAs that I'm now feeling horrendous about. So yeah, I feel good overall, but I need to make some money off these futures we're going to suggest today.
Yeah, I had a quick look at my ones, and I did a lot of top twos in divisions, and they seem to be going all right at the moment. So I'm fingers crossed for most of mine. Callum, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Had a good weekend of watching football in person. Was very lucky to be at Texas A&M on Saturday and the Houston Texans on Sunday. One was more enjoyable than the other. I'll let you figure out which one was which. But yeah, it was fun in person, even if the games didn't really go the way I wanted them to, either in this era of the world or on my fantasy teams as well. So yeah, happy to be chatting, but maybe not as successful as certainly you were, Adam, this weekend.
Yeah, you got to watch Derek Henry bring home one of my bets in person, which was
You're
nice.
welcome. You're welcome.
And you were saying earlier that even amongst big men in real life, he is gigantic, which is
Oh,
obviously you can see it on TV.
yeah, I mean, but in the flesh, it's even more emphasized, which doesn't make sense. I mean, I had what I thought was pretty good seats, kind of second row at the front of the upper deck, but right on about the 40-yard line, so you could see kind of the span of the pitch really well. NRG Stadium's a nice place. I've been there before, ironically for the rodeo rather than for the NFL. But yeah, just to see it for the NFL in person was great. But yeah, in a league full of mammoths and gargantuan humans, even from up high, where they look a little bit smaller, Henry still looks massive, and he's just bigger, stronger, quicker than everyone. And his touchdown run, which won you your aforementioned bet, Adam, was just from 29 yards out, throwing people to the side, pace, power, everything you could want in a running back. And I don't know what the city of Houston did to offend him, but clearly he has a vendetta against them. And prayers up for the Texans because they were terrible.
Yeah, he's fourth game in a row with over 200 yards and multiple touchdowns against that
Crazy.
one team is just ridiculous. But yeah, I had a Trixie on players to score 2 touchdowns. I had McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and Derek Henry, and that won me a rather nice amount. I had a nice in play bet as well at Paddy Power that did me well. But this is past posting. No one cares about that. So let's look forward to the rest of the season. I'm going to go around the divisions. I'll go north, south, east, west on each of them, and just where I think the value is for that division. So let's start with the AFC North. Obviously, a game tonight. It's the Bengals versus Browns on Monday, the 31st, Halloween. At the moment, you can get the Ravens best price. These are all best prices on Odds Checker at the time of when I wrote it. So there are various bookies, but obviously have a look on there to see what you can find. So we got the Ravens at 2-5, Bengals at 12-5, the Browns at 22-1, and the Steelers at 66-1. The Ravens are currently a game ahead, and they obviously won against the Bengals earlier in the season. These two face each other in the final game of the season, so I have a feeling it could come down to that. The Bengals' second half of the season is very difficult, and obviously they are a game behind at the moment. But playing the Browns tonight, they should beat the Browns. I'm a little worried because it's a bit of a bogey team for them. So, in my opinion, I think they're going to go to 5-3, joint at the top of that division. And I think the Bengals are a value, really, at 12-5. It's not a homer pick, I promise. Obviously, the other two teams are not really worth mentioning. If the Browns were going to get in at anywhere around 500 with Watson coming back, then maybe, but they have looked terrible. And if they go to 2-6 tonight, then that's pretty much game over for them. Liam, any opinion on that?
Yeah, I think if you are a Browns better or a fan, then I would bet it before tonight's game. Because if they won tonight's game, that's the only way the odds are going to swap dramatically. If they lose tonight, they won't change that much. But if they win, then it'll change a lot. So I think, yeah, if you like the Browns, do it today before tonight's game. Otherwise, yeah, I think you're right. values with the Bengals. I'd put the Ravens in a couple of accumulators because I do think the Ravens will win the division. But in terms of value, I think 12-5 is probably too high for the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you right there. I do think the Ravens will win it. I think they've kind of just started to turn the corner, and especially when you consider the amount of injuries they've had to start the season, I think it's actually quite impressive how they've been able to kind of hang in and still find a way to be winning games. And in all honesty, they are a couple of plays from being maybe undefeated in reality. I don't necessarily think they are built to win a Super Bowl just yet, but they have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, and if they can really use this kind of extended week they have right now to get a little bit healthier. They don't have a bye week, but they don't play until next Monday. So it's almost like a mini bye for the Ravens, and that would really help them, especially with the amount of injuries they took on Thursday night. But yeah, I don't mind the Bengals at 12-5. You've seen them be able to get hot and win, in quick games in quick successions that people didn't think they would win last season, which led them to the Super Bowl, as I know Adam will fondly remember. And I think the Jamar Chase injury is obviously a contender in this. And I think if Chase wasn't out for this alleged 4 to 6 week period, I don't think the disparity between 2-5 and 12-5 would be quite so big. I feel like if he was healthy, that would be a slightly smaller gap between the Ravens odds and the Bengals odds. I still think the Bengals will win tonight, against the Browns. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are more than capable of carrying the load without Chase, even though, as a three-headed monster, they would be all the more dangerous. And quietly, Hayden Hurst has had a nice little start to the season as a new tight end in Cincinnati. So I like him as another option for Joe Burrow. All that to say, I do still think the Ravens win the division, but I wouldn't be mad at anybody who told me that at 12-5 they like the Bengals odds.
Yeah, the Ravens have got a considerably easier schedule for the rest of the season as well. Like I said, the Bengals after the bye week does get incredibly difficult. So I agree with you guys. I think the Ravens will win, but yeah, the Bengals are the value. On to the AFC South. The Titans are 3-10 after their win against the Texans yesterday. The Colts 11-2, Jags 8-1, and the Texans 100-1. I mean, it's hard to look away from the Titans being the winners and the value, really, because they've won both the games against the Colts. We were talking earlier, we think that the Titans could go on to double-digit wins this year. Once again, they just know how to win, and they're in a relatively easy division. So, unfortunately, not much to talk about this one. This one, for me, it'd be Titans at 3-10.
Yeah, same as me. I think when I did my projections this morning before this pod, it was like 1-6. So they should be for me, for my opinion. So if you're 3-10, and I think they should be 1-6, then it's a bet that you just have to take. So yeah, I don't think there's any point looking elsewhere. I know PFF had this as one of the best bets you can make in the NFL as well at the moment, value-wise, just because all signs point to them winning in the division. They've got a relatively easy schedule compared to other division winners, because their division's obviously so bad. And if they beat the Chiefs next weekend, then it's done, basically, for them. They'll win this division easily. So, yeah, I think Titans are the one. And I know I might mention it later, but I like their over-win total as well for their current adjusted win total, which is 9.5 wins, just while we're talking about them. I just think that there's too many games they can easily win. And again, Vrabel seems to be able to dig out wins when they shouldn't. So once they get people healthy, I just think that they're too good for the rest of the teams in the division.
Yeah, I like Liam acknowledging that the Titans have an easy game on Sunday night against the Chiefs. I think that's really, really sweet of him to admit that. Yeah, the Titans are clearly the pick of the bunch in this division. I really thought the Colts would be at the start of the season. I really liked. I thought the Matt Ryan signing was a good one. Shows you how much we all know. So yeah, I really like where the Titans are right now. Vrabel has continued to prove how good of a coach he is, and it's really hard to see anything beyond Tennessee just walking their way to this division, in all honesty.
Yeah, I forgot to mention the records at the moment. The Titans are 5-2, the Colts 3-4-1, the Jaguars 2-6, and the Texans 1-5-1. Yeah, I think we're all in lockstep on that one, and we're probably all in lockstep on this one. Obviously, the Bills, AFC East, the Bills at 1-10, Dolphins at 10-1. Patriots at 33-1 and the Jets at 40-1 for that division. Obviously, I'm pretty sure we know that the Bills are going to win this division, but you've got to say the value is on the Dolphins at 10-1 because there's no value on the Bills essentially. So if you were going to have a bet, then Dolphins is probably the one for it.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't checked what the top 2 odds are at the moment. If you can do Dolphins and Bills, I've already got that in a single. I don't know what they are right now, but that'd be the only way you could find value for me. Because I don't even think that Dolphins 10-1 really is value, because I just don't think it's going to happen at all. But yeah, I wouldn't be betting the Bills at 1-10 either. So yeah, if you can find them top 2, I don't know what the odds will be. There'll also be odds on, but that's what I do.
8-13 for Bills and Dolphins top 2. You can get 8-11 for the Dolphins just to finish second. So I think I'd be going for that one over the top 2.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, there's not really much hope, I don't think, in Miami winning the division. I think most people have seen that the victory over the Bills a few weeks ago was very much fluke, shall we say, based on the condition. Yeah, I would 100% be sticking with the Bills first overall, 100%.
Yep. AFC West isn't too much different in fairness. Chiefs are 1-5 best price, Chargers 11-2, Raiders at 35-1, and the Broncos at 50-1. Chiefs currently lead it at 5-2. The Chargers are 4-3, the Broncos 3-5, and the Raiders are 2-5. Unfortunately, it's going to the favourite again. I don't see. I guess if the Chargers get people back healthy, obviously their bye week is this week. Looks like Mike Williams is going to miss another couple of weeks. Keenan Allen, you would imagine, would be back for the game, for the next game, but he's been on and off all season and they don't seem to be able to get him right. So I think really I've got to go for the Chiefs at 1-5, obviously chuck it in accumulator. And I'll be honest, I didn't realize you could do the top 2 still at the moment. So I would probably still go with the Chargers finishing second. I don't think you're going to get the best of odds on it. So do you want to talk that through while I have a nose?
Yeah, no, I do think the value. This is going to be complete contradicting myself for a bet we're going to talk about later, but the value probably is the Chargers, just because you never know. Like I said, if the Chiefs do lose a game to the Titans where Henry goes nuts, then the 2 teams play each other in 3 weeks, and then it could flip around a bit. So yeah, I don't think the Chargers are going to win the division, but obviously I just 1-5 is a little bit too much. But yeah, if you chuck the Chiefs maybe in Ravens and Bills in an accumulator, you might be able to get something worth betting. But yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to win the division.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought the Chiefs would win the division before the season. I thought the protestations of the Chargers and the Raiders competing were a little bit too soon. I still think the Chargers will have a good season, and we'll probably come on to that later on. But I think it's been fairly clear that the Raiders and Broncos are complete frauds and not really relevant in this division whatsoever, no matter if you get a big name quarterback like Russell Wilson, or if you refuse to get a big name quarterback and stick with Derek Carr. Neither of those 2 attempts are going to work for you. So yeah, this is my 2 Dolphins and Bills. The top 2 price is probably a decent option, or just Chargers to finish second. But that's probably all you would really feel safe doing in this situation.
Yeah, completely agree. And at least the Raiders haven't given out $250 million for their quarterback, and they're in a very similar position. So yeah, they're probably feeling a little bit smugger about themselves. I mentioned in my preview for this week that all the as you said, the prophetic stuff about the Broncos being a potential Super Bowl team with a quarterback, I'd never agreed with it, and it's quite nice to feel smug about your alternate opinion sometimes, isn't it? So that's the AFC wrapped up. I think for me, the value in that division is probably going to be going with, well, as we were saying, the Dolphins finished second. I like it. 8-11 is probably my best bet from that. So onto the NFC. NFC North, the Vikings are 6-1 somehow, and they are 1-16 to win that division. The Packers are 15-2, the Bears 50-1, and the Lions 150-1. Obviously, no value in backing the Vikings at the moment. So if you're going to go for a value pick, you've got to go for my bestest mate, Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers at 15-2. I do not think they are going to turn it around personally. I think that this is going to be a pretty painful season for them, and I would be very surprised if they challenge the Vikings at all. Obviously, they've lost against them in the division. The Vikings are 4-0 in division. No, 4-0 at home, sorry. So they are doing pretty well this year. So yeah, for me, it's the Packers is the value at 15-2, but I don't think it's a very likely one.
Yeah, same. That is what you say value, but I think this division's done now. I think the Vikings have won the division theoretically. They got the Commanders at the weekend as well. They've also got 5 6 o'clock games, which I know will make Callum happy because Kurt can ball out at 6 p.m. our time. But yeah, they got the Commanders next, and even if the Packers win next week, I just think they're going to be too far behind. But you can't be betting on anybody at 1-16. I don't think it's not clever betting. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't hate 15-2 for the Packers just because the Vikings are the Vikings, similar to the Browns is the Browns that was said a few years ago. And until you prove it to me, I'm not going to believe in it. I do believe that, love him or hate him, Aaron Rodgers has enough talent to make miracles happen, as we've seen previously. And I do believe that Kirk Cousins will let you down when you need him the most. So you never know. 15-2 is not horrible. You certainly wouldn't want to be putting significant amounts on that because obviously there's a huge element of risk in that. But equally, 1-16, what's the point? The Vikings schedule is interesting. I mean, you make the point of the Commanders, but the Commanders are weirdly frisky and winning games that they shouldn't do with Taylor Heineke. So I wouldn't say that was a foregone conclusion. And then they've got Bills, Cowboys, Patriots in a row. And there's definitely an argument you could see the Vikings go 0-3 in there. So I'm talking myself big time into the Packers finding a way to get back into this division, especially when the fact that the Packers host the Vikings on New Year's Day at Lambeau, which, is, I'd give the Packers that win right now, regardless. So you never know. It's probably, in terms of the divisions that we've spoken through so far, it's probably my favorite kind of outside shot to turn the division around, I guess. Maybe the Colts if Derrick Henry got hurt for the Titans or something. But in terms of just purely the two teams looking at them, the Packers are likely to try and be either signing maybe an OBJ or trying desperately to trade for someone here at the trade deadline this week. So you never know. If you're looking for an outside shot that you want to just have some fun with, I would probably lean to this one in terms of a surprise in a division winner so far.
Yeah. I agree it is the value, but I still don't think I'd take the Packers to finish second. I think there's two realities here: is that they challenge for the top or they fall apart completely, and the Bears are a little bit frisky at the moment as well. But the Bears aren't worth it at 9-2 either to finish second. That's not the odds I was thinking. I was thinking it was going to be closer to tens, to be honest.
Is there an exact order for it to be Vikings, Packers, Bears, and Lions?
Vikings, Packers, Bears, and Lions is 13-8. So
what about Lions to finish third and Bears fourth?
So that same thing is 20-1. Oh no, not 20-1. Vikings, Packers, Lions, Bears 2-1. So yeah,
I like 13-8. I have to say.
Yeah,
I guess the Bears have got what, 3 more wins than the Lions at the moment? Or was it 2 more wins?
2 more, I think it was.
2. I think
the
so the Bears have 3 and the Lions have 1.
Yeah, I can't see Dan Campbell winning 3 games in total, let alone 3 more games.
Stop it, you.
They're close. Have you not heard him? They're close.
Yeah, they are.
They are very close. I keep hearing that.
Yeah, he is right, to be fair, but it's been painful for them. So on to the NFC South. The Bucs are still 10-11 to win this division. Falcons are 5-2. The Saints are 11-2, and the Panthers are 30-1 after their heartbreaking loss yesterday. The Falcons are currently top of the division at 4-4, which is laughable. The Buccaneers are 3-5. The Saints are 3-5, and the Panthers are 2-6. And because of that, my value here is definitely the Saints at 11-2. Obviously, the Bucs will be hoping that Brady having some kind of finality in his relationship might help them. Might help him actually concentrate on football because he's obviously been distracted, which I don't want to joke about because it seems a bit weird. But there's obviously been something there, and frankly, it seems like he's caused it by coming back to football. But football's been his life, so I get it. But yeah, the Falcons, they're not going to win the division. I think the Saints could. If they ever get Michael Thomas back from his, I don't know what he's injured this time, is probably a toenail or something, because he seems to hate his franchise. As soon as he got paid, he's missed most of the games. But if they get him back, Andy Dalton has been fairly decent. He's been putting up points on offense, and they got their defense sorted this week with a shutout win. So yeah, for me, only one game behind the Falcons. Same record as the Buccaneers. I like the Saints at 11-2 for this one. Just looking at the at the standings, every team in this division has a negative point differential after 8 games, which is absurd, really. So yeah, Liam.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone here or anyone listening listens to the Bill Simmons podcast, but he's been on the Panthers the whole time, and he's still on the Panthers this week. And I just every time I hear it, it makes me laugh. But in terms of my opinions on the division, I think my best bet is actually Saints and Bucks top 2 in any order, 2-1. I don't know if I can actually bet it because I've got it in every accumulator I've got on Sky Bet, so I won't actually bet it again. But I still think that's great odds. I still think if you picked one team for me, it would be the Bucks. I think nearly evens, you're just not going to get a good team at any of these divisions anywhere near those odds. So I think I would still be backing them. We'll talk about the Saints for another bet a little bit later. But yeah, I think the Bucks and then do that top 2 bet because I can't see the Falcons or Panthers finishing in the top 2 for me.
No, I agree. I would love the Deontay Foreman, story to kind of lead to the Panthers making a playoff push after they trade away the golden boy McCaffrey and Foreman morphs into some sort of elite running back as he had a great game yesterday. But yeah, you do feel like this will still come down to Bucks and Saints because the Falcons are the Falcons and the Panthers are the Panthers, I guess. I feel sorry for the DJ Moores of the world. I feel sorry for Cordero Patterson, whose season kind of got derailed with injury, and maybe even Kyle Pitts as well, who probably wishes he'd landed in a slightly different spot for the start of his NFL career. But yeah, I think right now there is an argument to the Saints. I mean, the Bucs just look broken. I'm just not convinced by anything about the Buccaneers right now. But this is one of those situations where you almost say, are they too talented to fail? They just have too much talent on that roster, and surely they'll figure it out. I mean, the defense can't be as bad as it has been much longer. Surely this is without traumatizing Liam. This is a team that murdered the Chiefs in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with that defense and
offensive line. That was. I'll just add that offensive line.
Hey, listen, I cannot. I don't like talking about this night. I lost every single bet I made on that game except for the length of the national anthem. So from the moment the game kicked off until the moment the game finished, I was miserable. I was with you on the Chiefs and it didn't work. But the point with that is that the Bucs have been elite, still have elite talent on both sides of the ball. Brady, again, we won't make light of personal things because those are serious, as much as I've disdained him for most of his career. Those are serious things that can affect someone. And maybe now with a little bit of a finality, he might all of a sudden turn it back on. Godwin appears to be healthy, having come back. I think, he's only going to get better as time goes on. Mike Evans is still who he is. And I think they've Cameron Brate being injured has maybe been undersold. Brady loves his tight ends. And if he can get back healthy or maybe develop more rhythm with Cade Otton, that could help the Buccaneers as well. So I still think I don't love it at 10-11, but I still think the Buccaneers are the favorites to win the division. But I like Liam's shout of Saints and Bucks any order 1 and 2. I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, I think 2-1 on that is a cracking price. I've just put myself a little accumulator on while we were talking there with that one. I think that is a very tempting price. The NFC East is headed by it's the greatest division in football history, pretty much. This year is the Eagles are 7-0 unbeaten. We've got a couple of mentions about them in a bit. Cowboys are 6-2, the Giants are 6-2, and the Commanders are 4-4. At the moment, the Eagles are still only 1-4 to win. Obviously, with Cowboys breathing down the neck to a certain extent. Cowboys are 19-4, Giants are randomly at 15-1, and Commanders 150-1. So they're probably out of it. I personally still think the Eagles are the value. They have an incredibly easy schedule for the rest of the time. They have been dealing with everyone with relative ease at the moment. Next time they play the Cowboys is probably the next difficult game they get. I believe that the Colts are on their schedule in a few weeks, and that was one that on paper looked like it could potentially be difficult, but the Colts have not been very good this year. So unfortunately, 1-4 for the Eagles, I think, is still fairly good. Cowboys and Eagles top 2, I'd imagine the odds are not very good on. But I think the Giants will fall off. The Cowboys have actually looked very good. So yeah, 4-9 for Cowboys and the Eagles, top 2 in this one. And if you just want them in the order they are at the moment, you can get 5-4, which is probably fairly decent.
That's my best bet for this division, 5-4, because I just don't think the Commanders are going to win enough games to catch the Giants. Because the Giants have got, I can't remember who it is. Their next 2 games are relatively easy, so there's a chance they can get to 8 wins. And there's just no way the Commanders are going to get to more than 8 wins for me. And then I think, again, the Eagles are going to win the division. And then it's just, do you believe that the Giants can catch the Cowboys? And I just like Dak too much to think that's the case. So, yeah, I think 5-4 for this exact order is probably my best bet in the division. I think Eagles are going to win it, but I just don't want 1-4 when I can have a 5-4 shot that's similar value for me.
Yeah. I think pretty much as it's laid out there on the banner is pretty much definitely the order that it's going to finish in. I think the Cowboys will separate themselves from the Giants. I think the Giants will fall back a little bit, and I think the Eagles are probably not necessarily too good, but have such a simple schedule that the Eagles will just win this division. I think they'll lose a game at some point. Probably maybe the reverse fixture to the Cowboys. That's the sort of thing that would happen. But yeah, it's hard to look past the Eagles here with the Cowboys in second. I just don't think the Commanders and the Giants are good enough to find a way to keep up.
Yeah, I obviously agree with all of that. Yeah, it's they've all been sprightly, they've all been good. The Giants have somehow been winning games, and fair play to them. It's been impressive. But yeah, the talent in this division is the top 2, and I'm pretty sure it will stay like that. The NFC West, we have the 49ers at 5-4. The Rams are still somehow second favourites at 9-2. Seahawks 5-1, and the Cardinals at 16-1. For me, like, if you can get plus money on the 49ers, then go for it. I think that's incredibly good odds with Christian McCaffrey looking every bit as good as I expected. I really enjoyed watching the late night games last night. There was some fantastic running backs on show, and McCaffrey, it's great to see him in a team that's going to use him to the best of his ability, and a team with supporting cast around him that he could well be. Well, he could be a difference maker. I don't think the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl because of Jimmy G. I think he's much like Kirk Cousins, that he will fold in the big spot. But I did take a 14-1 on them earlier, which is now only boosted to 11-1. So my £35 fortune that I put on is obviously changed the odds significantly on them. But yeah, I was more than happy to take that this morning, and I will be taking them to win the division at 5-4. They're only 4-6 on Sky Bet, which is where I've been placing my bets recently. But there was a 5-4 available according to Odds Checker. So yeah, they're the ones I'll go for. I don't mind the Seahawks at 5-1, which seems silly. And I know that Callum's obviously got an opinion because he loves one of these teams and one of the quarterbacks on these teams. But yeah, the Seahawks have been looking very good and looking like they're getting things figured out. They're good. They've got talent in the pass catching game, and they've got talent on the ground. Their defense seems to be stepping up a bit. So I don't mind them at those odds, but I believe the 49ers own the Seahawks. I think that's another one that they have a very good record against. So yeah, for me, it's the 49ers to lose.
Yeah, I'm with you. That 5-1, I think Seahawks odds are good just because everywhere else they're 3-1. So I think if you want to bet Seahawks, then 5s is a pretty good value. But the Seahawks have actually got a weirdly really hard schedule left. So they've got the Cardinals, Bucks, Seahawks, Raiders, Rams next, and then they've got a middle bracket of 49ers, Chiefs, and Rams. So I do think that schedule is very, very hard. So I think 5-4 49ers is the best bet for me. And now let me pass you to Callum for him to tell you that 16-1 cards is where you should be betting.
I mean, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It's unlikely, don't get me wrong. But when you actually think about, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 49ers are 4-4.
Yeah.
Cardinals are 3-5. So we're talking one game difference in reality from a 5-4 to a 16-1. Now, admittedly, the McCaffrey trade changes a lot about this division. My best bet before the season was the Niners to miss the playoffs. And without McCaffrey, I would still feel slightly confident that could happen. With McCaffrey, it's hard to see that. He is just so explosive. He will do everything, as we saw yesterday. And I think that he is going to push this team into late playoff contention, which a team with a quarterback as average as Jimmy does not deserve. That said, I agree with Adam completely in the biggest moment, as you saw in the Super Bowl and as you've seen in NFC Championship games. Garoppolo will not be able to get them over the hump. McCaffrey's stats and his value on receptions and receiving yards and everything is going to go through the roof because Jimmy will check it down to him at all times, and McCaffrey is good enough to take that catch and turn a 10-yard loss into a 5-yard gain. But in terms of winning the division, the Rams look awful. The Seahawks will not be able to maintain this, I am convinced. So you almost have to go for the 49ers by default, even though I don't love it, unless you want to get wild and go with the Cardinals like Liam is daring me to do so. I mean, I don't necessarily think that the Cardinals' schedule is so difficult that it makes it an impossibility. The question is, do you believe that the Cardinals are able to win once or twice against the 49ers, which they would have to do in order to win the division? If you don't think they can do, then stay away from it completely. But in reality, the Cardinals have the Seahawks this Sunday, which I think they will win. They then have the Rams. Who knows what the Rams look like? And they then have the 49ers. So 3 games from now, they'll have played the whole division again. They'll still have games against they'll still have one more game to play against the Niners. But you have to think that if the Cardinals are going to make any noise, they need to go at least 2-1 in those 3 games, probably 3-0. But Hopkins is back. He looks like his old self. They still haven't had Hopkins and James Conner together based on injuries and suspensions. Marquise Brown will be back before the end of the season. I don't need to talk myself into it. There is definitely a way here for the Cardinals to still win this division, and we'll talk more about them later on. I wouldn't say it was by any means a sure thing or a safe thing, and if they were to go out and lose to the Seahawks next Sunday, then it's completely done. But if they can find a way to get hot with the amount of speed and explosive playmakers they have, they could still cause some problems. It's really going to come down to, can their defense stop anyone? And really, is anyone in this NFC West able to contain Christian McCaffrey? I doubt it. So that's probably why the Niners will come out victorious in the end.
In an impassioned speech from Callum there, yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's value all over this, apart from the Rams, in my opinion, on this one. I don't think, again, that like the Packers, I don't think the Rams are going to be able to turn it around. So if you do like any of the others in this division, then probably best to get on as soon as you can and sit there watching the value. I think the Rams have got a fairly decent chance of falling off. We probably should have done this pod. Yeah,
really hard
as
schedule.
A winner's schedule. We probably should have done this pod after Tuesday, after the deadline, because there could be some changes. But there's not a massive amount of talent available. Obviously, we don't know who's going to go for who. The Rams, we know, don't have many picks, so I don't think they're going to make too many moves. So that's about it for the divisions. Obviously, we've got a few suggestions for bits of value there. For me, I think the 49ers overall is probably the best value if you can get the 5-4 that I have it listed that there is value on. We will go over to Liam with the awards and see if we find anything good on there.
Cool. I thought we were going to go to Callum next, but that's fine. We'll go to awards.
I did ask, but he hasn't replied, so I'm not sure.
That's fine. We'll do awards. Let's start with the big one then, MVP. So I'm only going to rattle off the top 4 or 5, and then if there's any other odds that you guys want to ask about or if you've got for yourselves, then shout. So we'll start with MVP. Josh Allen, this is all from the same bookie as well. So Josh Allen's 5-4 at the moment. Jalen Hurts, second favorite, 7-2. Patrick Mahomes is third favorite, 9-2. Lamar is 9-1, fourth favorite. And then Adam's best friend, Joe Burrow, is 16-1, fifth favorite. Then everyone else is 25-1 or better. Geno Smith, 28-1, just for Callum there, in case he wants to put a bet on. In terms of value, I am extremely biased, but Patrick Mahomes is probably going to beat Josh Allen in every single category. And I just think the odds are too far apart. So I think 9-2 for him is probably my best bet. But I also love Lamar Jackson at 9-1. I just think there's a chance the Ravens could finish with the number 2 seed. And I know that probably means the Bills are number 1, which will have a lot to do with this. But I still think if you can beat the other quarterback in most major categories, then there's a chance that you can win the award, especially with the narrative for Lamar that he's got no receivers and the narrative for Mahomes that he lost the best receiver in the league or second best receiver in the league. Then I think those two things are going to help. So, yeah, I think Mahomes will be my best bet and Lamar is my 9-1 slight outsider. Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was waiting for you, so you go for it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I wonder if the Josh Allen versus Mahomes thing can be influenced by their head-to-head matchup, which obviously the Bills won a couple of weeks ago. And we won't see that again until the playoffs, potentially. I wonder if that, in the minds of the voters, will potentially sway things. I think it's hard to ignore Jalen Hurts, potentially, if the Eagles do continue to keep rolling. But I agree with you. Value-wise, Lamar Jackson is definitely a shout because the Ravens' schedule does get a little bit easier as we continue to go. And they do seem primed, like I said earlier, if they can stay healthy to make a run. And just as I say that, my phone flashes up that Rashad Bateman is out a few weeks. So that's bad for all my fantasy teams and my logic there. But you never know. There you go.
Well, it's good for Lamar. More rushing yards.
Well, true. Bengals versus Ravens, the final game of the season. If that's the decider for the AFC North, it could be the decider for MVP as well, because if the Bengals win it, then it'll be tough to give it to Lamar. And I agree with the narrative that you guys have been saying. So for that reason, I'd be on Jalen Hurts personally at 4-1. If they do continue the streak that they're on with an incredibly easy schedule upcoming, if they go 16-1, NFC 1 seed, then I think it'll be difficult not to give it to Jalen Hurts, frankly. So for me, the value would be on him at those odds.
Yeah, if they only lose one game or something like that, and the Bills lose 3 or 4, then it's be impossible, I think, for Jalen not to get it. Offensive player of the year, then. Speaking of Jalen, he's actually favourite for this. So Jalen Hurts is 7-2 favourite, which I did think was a little bit odd that Josh Allen isn't favourite. But Jalen Hurts 7-2. Second favourite is Tyreek Hill 13-2. Lamar is 7-1. Justin Jefferson's 9-1. Diggs and Cooper Kupp are 10-1, and then Josh Allen and Barkley are 12-1. And for me, I think this is a little bit of an easy bet. I'm going to mention him later, but I think Tyreek Hill at 13-2 is a very good bet for this. They've recently, in the last couple of years, stopped giving this award just to the quarterback that wins MVP. So if they do that again and stay away from quarterback, I just think there's a chance that Tyreek Hill's numbers could be some of the best we've ever seen. So yeah, I think 13-2 for me, for him, would be the best bet. Callum, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree completely with that. If the Dolphins keep passing at the rate they are, and if Tua stays concussion-free and is able to keep hitting people with accuracy, then, yeah, I mean, Tyreek is on a ridiculous pace and, proving to everyone, not in any way that what he said about Mahomes and Tua is accurate, but that he is able to put up numbers with anyone at quarterback, I think.
That's 3 out of 3. Tyreek Hill, if he hits potentially 2,000 yards receiving this year, then I think it'll be very difficult not to give him. Have you got a history of this award, Liam? Is it generally the best non-quarterback over recent times?
So last 3 were non-quarterbacks, and then the 3 before that were quarterbacks. So it seems like they've made a change ever since Lamar Jackson won both, basically, to share it around a bit.
No, that's what I assumed. That's what in my head I had as the results recently. So yeah, basically best non-quarterback, and it'll be hard to go against Tyreek. I mean, if Derrick Henry was playing the Texans every week, then I'm sure he'd win it again. But that seems unlikely. He's down at 50-1 after a quick look. But yeah, I think I'd be on Tyreek for this.
Yeah, I think Barkley's probably my outsider at 14. Just, I think, a bit of narrative behind him, but I'll talk about him for another award in a minute. Defensive player of the year, I almost feel like this is done already. So the favourite is Micah Parsons at 4-9. So he's one of the only ones on this that are odds on. Nick Bosa, second favourite, 8-1. Myles Garrett, who's never won it, 14-1. Third favourite, Aaron Donald, 22-1. And then Matt Judon and Max Crosby are also 22-1, who lead the league in sacks at the moment. I do think that Parsons is going to win this, but obviously there's not much value in a 4-9 shot. So the only other one for me would be Nick Bosa. I just think that he's having a very, very good season. If the 49ers do win the division and have a very good record in the NFC, it's probably because he's got a lot of sacks. So I think Bosa's the value, but Parsons for me is probably going to win the award. I just can't be betting on a 4-9. What do you think, Callum?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can't see anybody else, I guess, making enough noise to usurp Parsons, I guess, in terms of as an individual who just makes everything go for the Cowboys. I mean, their defense has really... There was a lot of talk about Cooper Rush, and, credit to him, he came in and played well. But in reality, it was the Cowboys' defense that steadied the ship while Dak was out, if we're completely honest. And obviously, Parsons has a huge part to that, had a huge game yesterday. I just think he's a game wrecker and will continue to doing that. This is not a market I would be betting on anyway. I always... I stress about betting on what other people's opinions are, if that makes sense. So it's not something that I typically look to get involved in. But, it's hard to look past Parsons right now.
Yeah, I agree on that. I'm not a fan of the awards markets myself. But yeah, other than Micah Parsons, the only one I'd have a nose at was Von Miller at 33-1. Obviously, if the Bills win the AFC and he puts up a few more sacks, I mean, the people in the know and the people who watch it all rave about Von Miller and what he's done for that team. And obviously, first game of the season, he blew up the Rams and looked incredibly impressive, and he's carried that on. So at 33-1, I think that's a little bit of value.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Let's go on to some rookies then. They're going to be the first year in a while that quarterbacks aren't in the top odds for this one. But offensive rookie of the year, Kenneth Walker is the favourite now at 6-4. It was obviously Breece Hall, but unfortunately he's gone down with his ACL injury. Damian Pierce is second favourite at 3-1. Chris Olave is your third favourite at 5-1, and then it drops off dramatically to a load of receivers at 20-1. We got Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Wan'Dale Robinson, and then Kenny Pickett is the first quarterback there at 22-1. So I think none of us are probably going to pick a QB. I think before the season that made a little bit of sense, but the way it's going for the Steelers, I don't think there's any chance. So for me, I think Kenneth Walker is probably one of the best bets for any of these awards. I just can't see anybody else beating him. Even Damian Pierce. I think if the Texans only win a couple of games, and then you've got Seattle with 7 or 8 wins, with their running back being one of their best offensive players, I just think Kenneth Walker's a bit of a lock for me.
Hard to disagree, really. I saw Damian Pierce in person yesterday. Good to see him. Thought he looked like he had a bit of burst, but game script is going to hamper his usefulness, right? Like there's only so much you can do when you're not going to be running the ball every down because you're down 20 after 15 minutes. So I have to stay with Walker as well. I'm pleasantly surprised. I didn't think he'd get this much run so early on, but obviously injuries have helped him a little bit. And that's what's so funny about these markets is so much comes down to opportunity and being in the right place at the right time, I guess. But yeah, it's hard to look past him. I think you've made the right assessment there.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, Breece Hall was a lock for it. Kenneth Walker's now a lock for it. Yeah, as long as he stays healthy, he's winning it. Olave, I don't mind as the top wide receiver. I think he is the best wide receiver in this class. And Kenny Pickett is 3-1 for most interceptions thrown this year. So I think that's very, very much more likely than offensive rookie of the year.
That's a new award. I didn't know they gave that out. Wow.
It's the highlight. It's the one they all go for.
Well, your favourite receiver, where's he in the odds? 28-1 for George Pickens, Adam. George
Pickens, future Hall of Famer.
Exactly.
Yeah, 28-1. Yeah,
Nice.
It's not really worked for him, has it?
No, not yet. Defensive rookie then, interesting as well. Usually this award obviously goes to pass rushers, but top 2 in the betting are both corners. So we've got Sauce Gardner from the Jets at 2-1, Tariq Woolen, the surprise pick in Seattle at 3-1. You've got Aiden Hutchinson at 9-1, third favourite, and then Jack Jones, who's got a few interceptions for the Patriots there at 12-1, and then Jalen Petrie, who you'd have seen yesterday as well, Callum, playing for the Texans. Yep. He is 12-1. And then I think Kayvon Thibodeau just outside at 13-1. So for me, it's probably going to be Sauce, but Tariq Woolen is a 5th-round pick. So I do think there's a bit of a chance that if the Seahawks do well again, people are going to say, okay, Tariq Woolen, 5th-round pick versus a top 10 pick, and they've had similar production, and people are going to vote for Tariq Woolen. But yeah, again, for me, I think the favourite's probably right in Sauce in this one.
Yeah, it's really hard to see anyone other than Sauce doing that. I mean, he's made a huge difference to this Jets team immediately. I mean, you don't think that really they were going to win that many. I didn't think they'd win that many games all season. And look, they've got 5 wins already. 5 wins? 4 wins? 5 wins. 5 wins already, which I did not expect. So, yeah, obviously he doesn't win the game on his own, but he's made such a big difference. And you feel like he's almost building his new version of, Richard Sherman or Revis Island, whatever you want in that team. And people are just staying away from him because he is that good.
Yep, completely agree. It's difficult to see past Sauce at the moment, which after watching a lot of Bearcats games last year, and he didn't allow a touchdown in college at all, and I think his final season only gave up about 150 yards or something similar. Seems to be doing pretty darn well in the big time, so tough to look past him. I would have a little nibble on Thibodeau if I needed a bigger odds one. He hasn't put up the numbers so far, but he seems to be doing all right after he came back from injury. Again, all these awards are quite narrative based, so you want to look for basically the last 6 games of the season, see what the schedules are, and that could sway you one way or the other. But yeah, Source has been brilliant, and it's tough to see past him, frankly.
Yeah, Giants have got a couple of primetime games in the last 7 weeks of the season. So if he has some sacks in primetime, you never know. But he's probably a bit too high there in terms of odds for a pass rusher, because it does normally go that way. But we'll see if a corner gets it. Now on to the last two awards, which are the hardest normally to pick unless you've got Alex Smith coming back off the worst leg injury I've ever seen. Comeback player of the year. Saquon Barkley is your favourite, 4-6. I think the odds there are a little bit too short, but he's likely to win. Geno is second favourite at 5-2. CMC 8-1, third favourite. Derek Henry is actually fourth favourite at 12-1, and then Travis Etienne, who absolutely killed it in London this weekend, he is fifth favourite, 18-1. Again, the awards are tough because I think they are priced quite well. I think Barkley's the rightful favourite, but if the Seahawks did get in the playoffs, I think 5-2 for Geno is great value for me on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be betting on Geno Smith in that situation. I just don't see it lasting across the whole season. Barkley has the narrative. I was surprised to hear a couple of the names mentioned there. It's such a narrative-driven award, as you mentioned, with Alex Smith. I mean, they might as well call it the Alex Smith Memorial Award, honestly, with everything that he went through, to be completely honest. So, yeah, I think Barkley's probably the likely one. But again, what happens if Barkley goes down with an injury in the next 6 weeks? God forbid, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But that's something I'm going to mention later on as well, that, it's such a fickle league with things like this. It could change week to week. So not one that I'd be going near, but I think Barkley's a rightful favourite.
Yeah, can't argue with Barkley being the favourite. I hate this award. There's some of the names on it every year is just ridiculous. Like they're coming back from a bad season. It doesn't make sense to me. ETN did look very good, and he is coming back after missing the whole season. So he would be the other one I'd have at the value at the price. But again, I think it's Barkley's to lose, and fingers crossed he'll stay healthy and he should win. At 4-6 isn't that bad.
No, yeah, it is not so short as I thought, but it's a tough award, isn't it, to back anyone under evens. Cool. Coach of the year, then last one. This is the one that I can never bet this one. So this would be a firm stay away for me. But in terms of the favourites, Nick Sirianni is your favourite, 10-11. Brian Dable, second favourite, 3-1. Kevin O'Connell, leader of the Kirk Cousins Vikings, at 9-1. Pete Carroll, 12-1, and Robert Saleh, 12-1. Again, this is such a hard award, I wouldn't be backing the favourite. So I think Brian Dable at 3-1 is probably good odds. But if the Vikings end up winning 13 games, I think Kevin O'Connell's got a shot as well at 9-1.
I mean, the disrespect that you didn't mention Mike McDaniel there, I'll just ignore that. That's fine.
20-1 if you want it.
I mean, look, that's great value. Take Mike McDaniel. There's my 2 cents. No, I do you know what? I actually think if this is a weird thing where I think a non-performance related issue will influence that. In that, if the Tua concussion thing hadn't happened, I think McDaniel would be higher odds. But I think based on the quote unquote negative press that the Dolphins and he got for their handling of that, even though I don't think he really had a role in that. I don't think he'll win it just based on that completely. But yeah, it's wide open. Dayball feels like a good shout.
Yeah, not the best odds for Dable, but I'd take him over Sirianni. I know the Eagles are doing well, but are they exceeding expectation? I don't really think so. I think the Giants have exceeded expectation to a fairly large extent. Pete Carroll at 20-1. I don't mind. Was it 20-1 where you had it, Liam? Sorry,
12-1.
Apparently, he's 20-1 on 888. I know that we're doing it all from the same book to keep clarity, but
It's a good
yeah,
bet,
I don't mind Pete Carroll if he does a good job, and he is doing a good job, obviously, with Geno. They are exceeding expectation a lot. So for me, I don't mind Carroll at the odds. I wouldn't be backing Sirianni at 10-11. And then Mike McCarthy was 33-1. If somehow they manage to overturn the Eagles and take the NFC East, then it's not terrible. I don't think he's a great coach, but it's all narrative and record, really, isn't it? So yeah. I think Dable would be the bet for me, but there was a couple of outsiders that I don't mind too much.
Nice, yeah. It's first time Brandon Staley hasn't been favoured for about 2 years, it feels like. So it's good. It's good to be in that position. Yeah, for me, in terms of all the awards, I think probably Kenneth Walker at 6-4 is your best bet. Most of these, if the player gets injured, you're going to lose your bet. So I know we could always say he's a running back, he might get injured, but I think him at 6-4 is probably the best value for me. On to you, Callum.
Yeah, so we just kind of wanted to touch on some potential kind of conference winners, Super Bowl winners, and then maybe a little bit on make or miss the playoffs overall. We kind of referenced them earlier. There's currently a boost on the 49ers to win the whole Super Bowl, which again is not something that I necessarily like. But at 11-1, it feels like there's some decent value in that if you believe in the Niners. I just wanted to get that one out of the way first before the price disappears. I'll do the conference winners now, and then we'll head back to the Super Bowl. As far as the AFC goes, it is hard right now to look past the Bills and the Chiefs, but for the sake of interest, I'm going to ignore those two because they are the quote unquote obvious choices. I think either one you could make an argument for, and they're both, relatively short prices. That means I don't see a whole load of value in them. That said, we referenced them earlier. The Baltimore Ravens at 8-1 to win the AFC feels like something that could be good value. If the Ravens get rolling with their run game, they can control the clock, and they have Lamar, who can just make magical things happen. So I don't mind the Ravens as an option there. If you want a slightly more risky version of that, the Titans at 16-1 also feels like a potential option if you're believing in the January ability to run the ball as being decisive. And if you want to go completely the opposite way, the Miami Dolphins are 16-1 to win the AFC. And while I don't for 1 second think they deserve to be in that contention or really will actually have a shot, they can score points. And that's very important to winning football games. And if their defense can hold up, Tua has arguably the best receiving duo in the league in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And stranger things have happened. Stranger teams have made runs. Hey, the Bengals made the Super Bowl last year. Anything can happen. So at 16-1, I don't hate the Dolphins to win the AFC for value there.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. As you say, anything can happen. Like the Bengals making the Super Bowl was remarkable. It was one of those kind of fairy tale runs that you don't really expect to see, and it could happen to the Dolphins. It is tough to look past the Bills, really. Obviously, they have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs now, and that was key for them. Although they had that last year and then still didn't make it. So I think that probably helps them actually. I think they're going to be super focused this year to do it. The Titans being the AFC 1 seed again would be quite something. But again, terrible division, and they know how to win. They've just won 5 games in a row, so it wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility. But yeah, I can't look past the Bills, unfortunately. I know it's boring, but they have dealt with injuries this year on defense, and they're still winning games comfortably. They're still fairly well shutting down teams. They are the class of the NFL, let alone the AFC.
Yeah, I think I agree with Callum on the Ravens at 8-1 being a really, really good bet. Likely they could be a 2 or a 3 seed. So if they're a 2 seed, they won't play the Bills until the title game. So I think 8-1 is a great shout. But the best value for me is the Chiefs, unfortunately, for the homer bias. Because when they play in the AFC title game, they won't be 10-3. So if you want to bet the Chiefs now at 10-3 to win the AFC, that's a better odds than you'll get on them to beat Buffalo. Which they'll have to do probably to get to the Super Bowl. So I just think that if you like the Chiefs, the odds are there. Mahomes has never had to play a playoff game on the road, so I'm excited to see him win it in Buffalo.
I like the confidence, Liam, to be fair, and it's hard to disagree with that. Far be it from me to ever bet against the Chiefs or Mahomes. But again, hard to bet against the Bills as well right now. On the other side of the NFL, looking at the NFC, the Eagles are currently the clear cream of the crop as far as I'm concerned. I think as far as most people are concerned, they're under 2-1 in most places to win the NFC. And to be fair, that's not even bad value really in all things considered, because they do look significantly better than most teams. I wanted to kind of just pick a couple of outside shots. Like I said, you can get the 49ers around 11-2, 13-2, which I don't hate, don't love it. If you're crazy, you can get the Vikings at 6-1. But one that I do like quietly is the Dallas Cowboys. We've spoken about their defense. They've started to get a little bit healthier. Having Tony Pollard as the explosive back and Zeke as the bruiser around the goal line could really work for them. We spoke earlier about maybe Odell Beckham Jr. being signed by Jerry Jones. That feels like a match made in heaven, potentially. So, yeah, I think the Cowboys, who are a similar price to the Niners to win the NFC, is not bad value for sure. And then again, if you want to be really disgusting and go for a completely outside the box one of just a team riding some momentum because they have a quarterback who's desperate to win, the Packers are 20-1 to win the NFC. And with their rushing game, as it gets colder, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, who needs to pick up his rushing, Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon combined with Aaron Rodgers in the backfield, I just don't think the Packers at 20-1 is bad value. You know, they don't look good right now, but you don't win the Super Bowl in October, and you don't win the NFC in October either. So yeah, for me, the Packers at 20-1 is something worth considering if you want a real outside the box one.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, I won't be following in on that one. When you were talking about a quarterback determined to win, I thought you were going to go with the Saints, to be honest. But you know, you went with the slightly more talented quarterback there. The Cowboys, the only issue there for me is they're probably going to have to go through wild cards, so they're going to be facing a tougher task all the way through on the road for all the games because you've got to imagine the Eagles are going to win. The Eagles are apparently 65% to be the number one seed at the moment, according to playoffstatus.com, which I've got up on the screen at the moment. Unsurprisingly, Vikings at their record of 15%. We don't. We always joke about Kirk Cousins, but he can't do it in the big time, and I don't think he will be able to get them there. So yeah, for me, it'll be Eagles and 49ers, I think, is the two I'd be going for there. And luckily, I have a decent amount on both of them. So I feel like I'm doing fairly well on the NFC side of things.
Oh, my heart just wants to say the Vikings at 6-1. They're going to have
We'll remove you from the stream. We will remove you.
They're going to be the number 2 or 3.
I have that
seed.
power.
Yeah, I think they're going to be number 2 or 3 seed. But my best bet is Tom Brady, 10-1. Doesn't matter how the season's gone in his life. Tom Brady usually ends up stood there with the Lombardi at the end of it. So I think 10-1. For him is too given on. I think the team's too good. I think Shaq Barrett did his Achilles this weekend, unfortunately, so be out for the season. But there's already a few stories today about the Rams and Bucks being desperate to add O-line help, wide receiver help, running back help, and tight end help. So we'll see who makes a trade. But yeah, I think the Bucks at 10-1 are probably too good to turn down. Out of the favourites, I think the 49ers are probably your best shot. But yeah, I really like the Bucks at 10s.
And then as far as the actual Super Bowl itself goes, just quickly, a couple that I picked out beyond the 49ers that we already spoke about, which seems to be good value everywhere now that McCaffrey's doing what he is. On the NFC side, if you believe in the Philadelphia Eagles, they're currently 5-1 to win the Super Bowl. And really what you're saying there is they're 5-1 to beat either the Chiefs or the Bills, is how I'm looking at it. Now, maybe that's a little bit oversimplifying it, but certainly the point Liam made earlier about the Chiefs are going to be worse odds to beat the Bills in the AFC title game than you're going to get them now. If you think the Eagles are going to roll through the NFC because the NFC is weak, as most of us feel, then 5-1 for the Eagles to win one standalone game against anybody is not bad when you consider the talent they've got and how well they've performed so far. And then to go back to someone I already spoke about, the Baltimore Ravens at 14-1 to win the Super Bowl feels like decent value. They're going to have to go through Buffalo or Kansas City, it feels like. But if you told me that Monday Night Football tonight was Ravens against Eagles and I could get 14-1 on Ravens to beat the Eagles, I'd feel pretty good about that. So, yeah, I don't hate the Ravens as an option there at 14-1 as well. Sorry, Adam, for choosing an AFC North team.
Oh, no, it's fine. I've said pre-season I think the Ravens are going to win the AFC North. They have not a very comfortable schedule. They have a comfortable schedule in comparison to other teams in that division, and if they do that, and obviously we know they have the ability to win games, I would worry about their postseason record. It's not been fantastic, and again, as you said, they're kind of snake bit with injuries. There's just popped up with Mark Andrews' day-to-day, so seems like he should be okay. He's obviously a key part of their offense, but I mean, Lamar can beat anyone on his day by himself, frankly. So I don't mind it at the odds. I struggle for anything outside the favourites on this one, unfortunately, at the moment. Tom Brady said himself, like the league this year has not been fantastic. There was points this weekend, which was nice, but no one seems to be really separating other than the Eagles and other than the Bills. So for me, I struggle to look past them two, really.
Yeah, I like the Ravens odds again. Just came out that Tyus Bowser, who led the team in sacks last year, and David Ojabo have both been elevated off the IR. So that's 2 pass rushes in the league where pass rushing is important. So I do think that's probably a good shout for the Ravens. Their odds are going to get worse, I think. But yeah, my best bet, PFF's best bet, 538's best bet, ESPN's best bet is obviously the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. Same idea. If they get to a Super Bowl against anyone in the NFC, they'll be, I don't know what you'd say, 4-6 to win the game, maybe, I would say. Ish.
It's normally -3 for the favourite around that. I don't mind AFC -3 at the moment. You'll probably be able to find that somewhere still. Chiefs Eagles, I'd probably have it a bit closer to be honest, but yeah, I think Chiefs would definitely be favourites.
Yeah, and it's 13-2. So I like the Chiefs. The Bucks again. If I'm going to bet them for the NFC at 10-1, then 22-1 to the Super Bowl is a pretty good bet. And then the only other one that's worth a shot is Titans are 40-1 on Sky, but apparently on Virgin they're 55-1. And according to everywhere else in America, they should be way shorter than that. So yeah, Titans are a fun one at 55-1 if you fancy losing a £5 free bet.
Dolphins are 25-1. Anyway, on to a very quick recap of people to make or miss the playoffs. I've kind of picked out a few that I like, and the guys have got some themselves. To miss the playoffs, I feel like the Seahawks, the Falcons, and the Giants are all just waiting to combust and fall apart. It may not happen for any or all of them, but it does feel like the Falcons have had a perfect storm of good fortune to somehow end up atop the division right now. Similarly, the Giants are 6-2. Just doesn't make sense from where they've been and where they're likely to go. They still don't have, I like Wan'Dale Robinson, but they don't seem to have the ability to throw the ball at all and have somehow won 6 games, which is crazy. And my third one was the Seahawks. Again, Geno Smith, great story. He's done fantastically well, but hard to really see them making it stick for me. So I like those 3 to miss the playoffs. And then to make the playoffs, the Packers, again, great value. Hard to ignore that. We've already spoken about the Saints is one that I know Adam wanted to touch on at 3-1. The Saints, if they can get healthy to make the playoffs, is a really good option. And obviously, I'm going to finish with the Arizona Cardinals, who are 6.5. So what's that? 11-2. I just can't believe that price is so long based on the fact that they're only 1 game out of first place in their division. So again, if you believe in the Cardinals like I do, and you think they might get better as they get healthy and finally have their full team for the first time this season, then that might be something you want to look at as well.
I listed 1 to miss, 1 to make, and they were Falcons 8-15. I think that is probably the best bet out of all of them, to be honest. It's shorter than 1-2. I was quite happy with that. And yeah, Saints at 3-1 to make the playoffs. They're only a game out of first place in that division. The Bucks don't look much. The Falcons have somehow got to the top of it. The Panthers are the Panthers. So yeah, I think if the Saints get a few players back fit, I think 3-1 was very generous for them. Although, to be fair, if I'm doing that, then I may as well take them to win the NFC South, frankly, because that's the only way anyone in this division is going to make the playoffs, and they are 7-2. So not a huge difference, but yeah, 7-2 for them to win the NFC South. So yeah, they'd be my 2 for this one.
Yeah, I agree completely that Falcons is the best bet. I don't think there's any way they're going to make the playoffs. So for that not to be like 4-1 on feels like that's probably a really, really good bet. And they have to do it that way because the wins they've got. So yeah, I think that's probably the actual best bet. I do like the Saints as well. My best bet to make was the Packers. 7-4. I just think that's just a great shout. They've got worse odds than the Bucks. I think the Bucks will make the playoffs, but because their division's weaker, then their odds aren't very good. So I like the Packers. And then my best bet to miss for value is the Chargers. Hard schedule is 6-4. So they've obviously got plus odds there. A lot of these aren't plus odds. And yeah, their schedule is like the 3rd hardest remaining in the NFL. And there's just a chance that the Chargers are going to charge her and finish 8th, 7th. So I just think those odds are a little bit too high.
All good then. So that's all those ones, and then we had a couple of crazy ones that we were talking about before. Eagles best regular season record 11-10. Quite like that. Obviously, we've mentioned multiple times about the comfort and the ease of their schedule. They are also 12-1 to go to 17-0. That's probably. I mean, 12-1. I quite like the odds. It's a very unlikely thing to happen. Obviously, it hasn't happened before with 17-0. but I don't mind it at 12-1. I do think the 11-10 is fairly generous for them to have the best season record as well. And I will pass it over to Callum for another one that we were talking about, which was a Miami-based one.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ignore the Tyreek Hill most receiving yards prop, which I know Liam has been championing in the last couple of weeks. I mean, the way that Tua's playing, the way that Tyreek's playing, he's, going up nearly 150 yards a game, basically. And if he's able to keep that up, most receiving yards 9-4 is good value. There's a few others who, have their name in the hat, Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson. But right now, I think it's hard to think of a passing game that you'd want more in the NFL than the Dolphins, because they seem to not really mind going behind and then just chucking it down the field until it works. Maybe the Bengals is a fair point, and, the Chiefs is the Chiefs, with all due respect. But, look, the Tua breakout party has started, and I'm sure it won't all blow up in my face before the end of the season.
Yeah, I love that bet. That's a great bet. I think the odds, I can't believe they were like that. He's a couple of hundred ahead already. And he has got a game in hand on Diggs, but he's 205 yards ahead, I believe, of Diggs. So again, Diggs would need a hell of a game just to go ahead. And I just think Tyreek Hill's a very, very healthy player. You can always rely on him. He always plays games. So yeah, I just think that's probably a best bet. And then my other one was the one I mentioned earlier, which was Titans over 9.5 wins, was just one I just think is a bit of a lock for me. They got to play in their own division a couple of times, a couple of weaker teams from the NFC, and then some hard AFC games. But the Titans seem to win one or two games they shouldn't every year, so they'll beat someone that they shouldn't. So yeah, that'd be my other best bet.
Yeah. So I think we are done for our little mid-season review preview. Thank you for listening, and we will be back on Thursday for our usual weekly podcast, looking over our 4 quote-unquote best bets and seeing how we do on those. Fingers crossed, be a little better than this week. My under 51.5 on Dolphins and Lions was dead by halftime, so yeah, not the most ideal one for me, but yeah, fingers crossed we're going to go 2-2. We have the Bengals -3 tonight for Jack, and Liam unsurprisingly won his again this weekend. So we looking to even out for the season. But yeah, come back on Thursday, and thank you for watching and listening.